All right, hi everybody. This is John J. Singleton. Today's July 3rd, and Joseph was kind enough to organize a web conference with a list of people that are interested in this subject of the fake virus show and what to do with the mentally ill who we're surrounded by, how to get through them every day. So we want to cover those topics like kind of like we did yesterday, right, Joseph?
Yes, that'll be fine.
Okay. So we were
Hmm.
just casually talking, and all of a sudden we got into this discussion, all this detail about, walking in the grocery store wearing a mask or not, and where some cities and counties are trying to require it, right? So I've sent an outline to everyone, and we'll make this available under the video. Okay. So Joseph, do you want me to go through this outline here, or do you want to start with any questions?
No, you can start out with the outline. The
Okay.
outline is very important.
All right, and I didn't put in the outline, but I do want to really acknowledge some people that have really done some good work, and I really appreciate other people that have addressed this and used their expertise and their knowledge and their work to try to help other people. And if I could say, call them by name, if that's okay. Peggy Hall, if you guys want to check her out on YouTube, I believe she has a website called The Healthy American, thehealthyamerican.com, I believe. That's Peggy Hall in California. And also there's Jennifer Hall Goodwin. I believe she's in Florida. I spoke with her one time. She's you can Google that, and she's on Facebook as well. She does some great videos. She just had a meeting with her local, I think it was a city council. You'll want to see that on Facebook. And there's just a lot of people out there that are really helping others, and they're publishing a lot of information. Also, David Martin, and we'll get into some of what David Martin was talking about. David Martin has been kind enough to explain how to complete a standard form 95, which essentially is a claim form for injuries and damages caused by government actions. So we'll get into that quite a bit. That's not my area of expertise, but I do completely understand what he has prepared there for people. So I recommend that you check that out. We're going to cover this a little bit, but if we could, let's just start at this whole subject where we got talking about the so-called pandemic. Okay, Every,
Pandemic.
pandemic. That's what they call it.
I
If we'll
call it
just
plan.
yeah, yeah. Well, it is.
Uh,
I'm going to try to avoid using key phrases here because if it's going to be on YouTube, I don't want to be censored. I want to be pulled. But you guys know what I'm talking about.
yeah, I know what you're saying.
Yeah. So the whole idea here is there isn't one, right? There is no pandemic. Um, I have my understanding of this, and I came with this understanding because now I'm not an expert on viruses or medicine or anything. I am not in that. But I have been following the people that are behind it. I call them creatures. I have been following them since the 90s. And the reason why I got into the profession I'm in right now, which deals with risk management, it deals mostly with money. People like to call me because they have tax issues. I'm not, I mean, that is an area that I deal with. It's a large area, and also debts and things like that. But I deal with property rights and risk management. And my focus is always on re- eliminating, if I can, the need for litigation and the need for traditional insurance when I'm trying to avoid a risk for a client or a situation. For example, if someone's going to invest in something or do a business transaction, I can write the contract in a certain way to limit risk. So I look at all this stuff in terms of risk, in terms of property rights and who has what risk. And we'll cover all that. We'll get into that detail. So we understand that there's no pandemic. But what's going on is uh, there's states of emergency being declared so that governors and counties, states, counties, governors, boards of commissioners, boards of supervisors, mayors, all these government workers can get free money from FEMA. It's more than that. But these declarations of emergencies are to get free money, okay? It's also part of a large epidemiological study or experimentation on people. So there is no pandemic. And what I like to explain to people is if you just simply compare the total number of people that have died, let's just pick North America or even the United States. We have a running total. Just pick the most recent number you have of the reported deaths, total deaths from everything, from car crashes, old age, whatever, and look at what that number is. You can look at that number for the last 3 years up until, let's say, middle of the year. We're like, what, July 3rd now, so this is literally the middle of the year. Look at that number and compare it with the previous 3 years, and you're going to find that there are less people that have died this year total than in the previous 3 years or averages of those 3 years. We're like, I think 6% less than those. So that's an interesting number. Now, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think I'm wrong on that one. Then if you look at the total number of people that have had tuberculosis in the last 30 years and that have died from it, that has a wide range. So we're looking at a 7% and a 36% on the upside range of mortality for those who contract tuberculosis. Um, that that is way more than people that have died from this pandemic, okay? Assuming that the numbers being reported are even correct, even just accepting those numbers at face value, which we'll get into why those are not correct. So 7% to 36% for tuberculosis, where's the emergency there? Where's the declaration of an emergency and so forth? Now we have this phony pandemic, and we'll just say the number. So what I can tell right now, I know you all have probably more accurate numbers. We're looking at a total mortality rate of 0.5%. It's actually less than 0.5%, not even 7%, nowhere near. So if tuberculosis is not a pandemic, certainly this current pandemic is not a pandemic. So that I just mentioned that because there should be some point of comparison here. And then we get into the issue of, and people like to quote the Constitution. I know some of you are not going to like this, but I really don't believe that we can quote the Constitution and say there are constitutional violations here, because the reason why I'm saying that is because if you start doing that, a lot of times your claim will be ignored. What you're saying will have no legal merit, ironically. What we have are property rights, and they may be protected by obligations our government agencies have. That's fine. But we don't have First Amendment rights and things like that. These are just restrictions on government. So we have property rights. Privacy is a property right. Your right to an informed consent regarding any medical evaluation or medical examination or medical procedure or medical advice, you have a right to informed consent. Now, you will find this. I'm not saying it has to be in writing somewhere. We just have it because we're human beings, okay? But it is expressed in writing in your state. Your state has this. So just, you can search on the internet for the term, the name of your state, and put the phrase, patient bill of rights. Okay?
Opposed to everybody saying civil rights. Civil
rights are not for us. No.
I know.
And so same with constitutional rights. No, we have property rights, and then government offices have obligations to recognize those and act accordingly, et cetera. So, but this really helps because the issue of informed consent, okay, I'm going to just say it goes back to World War II. It goes way beyond that. It goes back to human history. But in World War II, we had issues. We had the discovery that you could have an entire nation or military conduct epidemiological experiments on people around the world, and that was recognized, and it was banned. It was established as a matter of international law that is not going to be tolerated under, you got the Helsinki Doctrine, I believe it is, and you got the Declaration of Human Rights and the Nuremberg Code, right? And this is adopted in, we'll even cite this now, but we'll get into it later. And David Martin is the one that brought this up. I didn't know about this until he did his lecture on this. But in Title 21, okay, of the Code of Federal Regulations, in Part 50.20, it talks about this. Okay, it basically codifies the Nuremberg Code in our own regulations, in the U.S. regulations. So we'll get into that. But property rights involve informed consent when it comes to medical advice. So if I want to go into a place that's open to the public, and that includes a courthouse or a grocery store, or it even includes a private membership retail operation like Costco, for example. I went into Costco the other day. I got myself a membership like 2 days ago for the first time ever, and they tried to pull this, mask stuff on me, and I'll explain what I did. But the bottom line is that a person who's not a physician cannot tell you or force you as a condition of anything to accept his medical advice, which includes wearing a mask. Someone telling you to wear a mask is giving you medical advice, and you can choose not to accept it, even if it's your physician that you paid for. You've paid him for medical advice, and you can choose not to accept his advice. So if someone who's a stranger comes to you and says, hey, you have to do this, he clearly has no rights to do it. And I know we have mayors, we have county boards of supervisors and commissioners, we have the lead personnel of these people, like the speakers and the mayors of the counties. We have the governors. We even have judges in Texas. We got two idiot judges in Texas issuing judgments, court orders, proclaiming that, as if they're King George III, proclaiming that people have to wear masks. Now, you should understand that you have property rights, and a person who's working as an employee in the government, holding a government office, or an employee of a government office cannot issue an executive order or a rule
Oh,
that affects private businesses or people. And I know these executive orders are they're writing right in the order. This affects grocery stores and barber shops. This is not true. These offices were never created to regulate private businesses. They were only created to
oh,
regulate government offices and employees administratively. And even then, even the governor, for example, the governor is limited to delegating that authority to the actual director of that office. He can't even tell an office that's working for him what it has to do specifically. He can say, generally, I want you guys to do this thing. And then the director of that agency, let's call it, one that comes to mind is in Florida, we have the Department of Business and Professional Regulation. The governor cannot tell that agency what to do in detail, but he can tell that agency, you guys need to start adopting this and do some research and figure this out, and you need to adopt a certain set of procedures for this particular matter. Okay, and then it's up to that agency to write regulations or codes to administer that governor's order. That's how it's supposed to work. The governor can't just say, that grocery store over there has to require this of its patrons, or that grocery store over there has to require this of its employees. Okay.
but we have a problem because our people don't under, or
Right.
understand and overstand government properly.
That's
It's
right.
like, what's his name? Cuomo. I'm in New York City. He said it was 100,000 that have corona. He had to go back and backtrack that bullshit he was saying.
Right. Right. So they're lying to people and they're scaring them, which is the definition of terrorism. Right. And so how do you deal with this?
And
What's our
treason.
remedy? Well, it's a lot of things. So, but what we're trying to do is just get through our lives right now. We're trying to not participate in this simulation. We're trying to get our groceries. We're trying to go to the doctor, not be having our temperature taken, all that sort of thing. So when it comes to going into a grocery store, it's very simple. Here's what I use now. I agree with Peggy on this. You do not need this. I came up with this idea. It works beautifully. It's just an ID card. Okay. It's really not an ID card. I'll send you guys an image, but basically it's got my photo on there. I use my passport photo, and it does not have my name. It does not have my date of birth. It does not have my home address. It does have a made up patient ID number and another number I just made up over here on the side with a
And it
seal.
gets to the point.
Yeah, I can, and on the back, it actually can be scanned. Okay, it's got a QR code, and when you scan it, it'll show the same number that's over here. Nothing special. It's got a hologram on there. I just have a company make these for me. If you guys want them, I sell these, okay? I do not sell my time, which probably I should, but I do not sell people information on this subject. I
Right.
give it away freely. But when it comes to this little card here, I mean, if you guys want it, I'll make it for you. I'm telling you, you don't need it. I hardly ever use this card. It's for, actually, I've used it for laughs with people that understand.
I
I say,
just
look,
walk into the stores over here. They don't really harass you over here.
yeah, right now we're having a good time with, I mean, it's an easy time so far after our local county came up with this rule that you have to wear a mask, and then just not part of the order, but said we're not going to enforce it. Well, of course they're not going to enforce it because they can't enforce it, right? But everyone's
They're not
scared.
doctors.
They're not. And so what I'm able to do here for right now is walk into a store. I can literally just ignore anyone telling me to wear a mask and I'll be fine and they'll sell me something. I think at some point I'm
What
probably going to be
street are you in?
denied. I'm in Orange County, Florida.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and this is where we have Orange County. And end of June, the mayor of the county came up with this rule, right? And so, pretty much 99% or more, 99.9% of the people are wearing masks. I see some people don't
Uh,
want to,
I see them
and
with the foam mask. I start to crack up. I
yeah,
was like, you
yeah,
really have that
yeah,
mask on in this heat?
yeah. So I want to cover this thing on the property rights. Judges can't make these orders, okay, because the judges have no legislative ability. So that means, what that means is the legislative process requires public awareness. It requires public commentary. It takes years. I don't know. It might take 2 years. It might be as a matter of statute that it takes 2 years,
Yeah.
maybe a year. So you're not going to see this. I don't believe we're going to see this go through the legislative process. So they're trying to slip it in and scare people and get them to change their habits. And then later on, it'll be easy to bring in a law that
Right.
violates all the other laws. So
Right.
right now, judges are trying to use their contempt power to create law. What they're doing is scaring people. So if the judge issues an order, first of all, it has to be specific to individual people, and there has to be a hearing, and there has to be a show cause hearing, and there has to be a process, a due process that takes place to establish whether or not that order should be written. This order, like these two judges, Bell County and the other one, Travis County, Texas, they are generic to the entire population. So it doesn't stick, but here's what happens. A sheriff's deputy or a police officer thinks he's going to enforce the judge's order because he wants to be in good graces with the judge, and he's going to arrest somebody for what, not wearing a mask. It's going to scare everybody. And then everybody who's like me, who's not wearing a mask, is going to be scared and go, I guess I better wear one. I don't get arrested.
Fear
And that's what
tactic.
they're trying to do. Yeah, because it won't stick. The contempt order will not fly. In fact, it creates all kinds of other legal problems for the county and the city. And I want to explain about that because I want to show you guys how you can make claims against them and not have to sue them. I don't think that's a remedy. I think maybe it
Right. Just
might
the
be.
claim.
Yeah, I think if you make a claim, and here's what's happening. You use their forms and you make a claim,
Mm-hmm.
and then their insurance interests have to get involved. And you get the county attorney involved and the state attorney, because now you're talking about risk. You're not talking about a virus. You're not talking about anything. You're only talking about money now. You reduce it to that. It's just like if you busted your tire on a curb that wasn't repaired properly in your county, your car tire, and it costs you a couple $100 to fix everything. You can literally fill out a form and file it with your county, and they'll send you a check for $200.
Let me ask you a question, because I filed a tort claim and against a local municipality in Jersey. So I sent it to them. They didn't even have the proper paperwork. I had to come up with my own claim.
That
So
happens. Yeah.
I did all that. So I sent it to them. I already know that they cannot oversee that claim because it's against them. And then they got another lawyer out of the picture. I don't know where the hell this lawyer came from. I called him up and I said, are you the lawyer representing the municipality in Jersey? It's Fort Lee. And he says, no. I was like, so why do I have a letter here that says that my
Client.
claim is no good? He was like, well, no, I'm not representing the municipality. So then I called back the municipality and they said, oh, you need to speak to the lawyer. And I was like, I said, you guys
Okay.
cannot.
Let me cover this. Let me cover this because you have to notify the city attorney in that case you're describing, or the county attorney. Okay. You cannot just send it to the municipality. You got to serve process on the county attorney.
Right.
Right. Okay. So we'll get to that. So I'm talking about, okay, judges, mayors, governors, none of these guys, counties, they can't make rules that affect private businesses or people. Now they'll act like they can, but it just makes everything expensive. All right. Do you want to get into the issue of the mask and the retail places?
Yeah.
Or
I'm not really worried about that.
I might bounce around a little bit. Okay. So we can pretty much get through that in most cases. So what I just described, there is no law that I can tell. I mean, I don't think there could ever be a law that's going to require anyone to accept medical advice from the government to wear a mask. In this case, I mean, even the mask, it would have to go through all these trials of testing to see if it really would prevent a contagious pathogen, and which would bring in the question, is there a contagious pathogen, right? We'd all have to deal with all that. It would be a public debate, right? That's why I'm thinking we would never have a piece of legislation on this whatsoever. So I'm just going to blindly say there is no law requiring you to wear a mask. And so sure, someone can intimidate you, harass you, call the police on you. They could refuse to sell you something, and that gives you other things you have to do or not do. Like there's a couple stores in my town. I don't have to go to those stores. They don't let you in if you don't wear a mask. Everybody else does, or I can just talk to them like Walmart. They give me a hard time there, but I don't care. I'm patient and I'm polite to people, and they don't know any better. They should know better, but I'm not gonna, be mean to them. I'll ask to speak to the manager, and I'll just say, look, man, I can't wear a mask. All right, I have a condition. I don't have to say that. It's just it's easier for the
Makes it easy.
conversation. And here's my condition. I'm healthy,
Right.
you know, and so I'm not going to ruin my health, and I'm not going to tell him that, so that's how
Anything
you deal with it.
to deter.
Yeah, I just need him to go away. I mean, I don't want people following me around the store and, nagging me. At Costco, I had like 3 or 4 people. I mean, one guy came up and said, "Here's a mask in a box. Like, here's free masks." I was like, "Wow, that's so nice. Free mask? No thanks." you know. And so the issue is, you're not my doctor. I have to have informed consent. In order to have informed consent, you got to show me that the advice you're giving me, if I follow it, it's going to protect me from, adverse health consequences. What data do you have that can show me that what you're telling me to do is going to protect me? And are you qualified to tell me that?
Right.
Are you insured for that? Are you insured to give me medical advice? And the only way you can get insurance is if you're a physician. You got to be a licensed physician in your state. So they got huge problems if you just call them on it.
Right.
I mean, if you want to have a polite conversation, I'll share with you guys letters I've sent. To small businesses, I send a letter that says, look, you may not be aware of this, but you're being set up for all these liabilities, and I explain it all. And then I say, what you may want to consider doing is changing your store policy so that you can just not have to participate in all this. And if someone ever wants to investigate it, you can show them that your store policy says that you refuse to break the law, and you want to respect your patrons' property rights. Okay, and you're completely within your rights to do that as a business owner. So that's how I address it with those guys. But with the big international like Walmarts and Targets, I tell them, you're going to be taken down with this. You're going to experience tens of thousands, if not millions of dollars of costs if you don't stop this insanity. And you can see my letters, and I go through all the different aspects of this. When we talk about masks and property rights, we don't use those phrases with people, but I just tell them, some people, I just say, I don't like wearing a mask, and I choose not to wear a mask, or there's no reason to wear a mask, etc. Just polite and just keep on moving. So far, no one said you can't buy something here. If that were to happen, I would make the comment like this. I would ask for the manager politely, if this were to happen to me. So far it hasn't. And I would just say, are you aware of the Americans with Disabilities Act and the liabilities for refusing service to someone who's in a wheelchair? Now, that I say as an analogy. You could start the conversation by asking the question, are you aware of the liabilities your store may have or you may have for refusing service to someone who's in a wheelchair? And then the person might say, well, you're not in a wheelchair, and say, well, of course. But are you also aware that wheelchair is just one example of the types of disabilities and medical conditions for which you can't deny someone's service? Your store is open to the public. This isn't like your next door neighbor's house, right? That's not open to the public. This is open to the public. And I mean, you wouldn't even finish the sentence, and I would think that you wouldn't have a problem ever again. And if you did it that way, you would free up the time for the next guy, right? It's going to make it easier for the next guy, which I think has already happened. That's why I think I'm seeing the ease with which I can go through the store right now, and that they have this ridiculous, maze you want to follow in the store, and I completely do the opposite of that all the time. I never follow the 6 feet apart, because that's all about surveillance. And I explain that, and and people sometimes look at me and they ask me to stand apart. I say, no, I'm not going to do that, but you're welcome to stand over there if you want, So really, this is all about just being a patient with people and polite to them, because maybe hopefully that's all we have to do, but there may be a day when that's not going to be called for anymore. I hope that doesn't happen, but for the most part, we can get through it. But I just want to cover these issues of property rights and the liability issues where someone is giving medical advice and maybe even wanting to take your temperature, which would be in a medical examination.
I seen that they're doing that over here. Before you walk into the store, they got that little hand thermometer.
Right. So in that case, I avoid confrontation. So I like to send a letter and then maybe have a phone conversation with the owner if it's a small business, and say, look, I don't know if you're aware that you might want to talk to your attorney about the liabilities you're possibly incurring, because when you take someone's temperature, you're collecting vital statistics, and that's also known as a medical examination. And it does require the competence and insurance and licensing to do that. See, here's the thing. If you're the property owner or manager, you're concerned about liability. And if you got somebody on there who's doing something that's an unlicensed practice of medicine, you have huge liabilities. You're culpable right in there with them, especially if he's your employee. What kind of liability is that? And so there is instruction here where, okay, like right down here where I've got, if you look at the notes, I've got the outline. I'm moving down. I skipped OSHA. We'll get to that in a second. I moved down to the ADA violations and DOH complaint. I'm not saying that the Americans with Disabilities Act is where you have rights. I'm just saying it governs how businesses operate. It governs how they should treat people. Just like, for example, I mean, I never really thought of it about parking as close as I can to a building that I want to walk into. You know, it's just human nature. I'm not going to walk as far. I'm going to walk the least distance, right? But if people said to me, you know, have you ever considered that there may be elderly people or people that are infirm that would want to park closer to the building? I probably would have made the conscious effort to start, you know, parking further away, like a few spaces away, and leave those empty for people that are in a wheelchair or something. It would, you know, so we could do things ourselves. We don't need a law to tell us what to do, but we have a law that tells us about the ADA. So fine. Just realize that the retailers are subject to this and they respect it. They're afraid of it. They don't want liabilities because their insurance rates will go nuts. They'll lose their insurance. All kinds of bad things will happen to them. They could have their license in jeopardy, things like that. So just mentioning the fact that your policy fails to make reasonable accommodations, that is another way of talking about ADA violations without going in there and start quoting a bunch of laws to people. You could just say, have you ever considered the possibility that maybe your policies, your practices, the way you're doing things here, it may fail to reasonably accommodate, you know, certain situations, right? So they can't reserve services for ADA issues. The Department of Health is where you would file a complaint. Now you could go do a search engine for the complaint form for your state's Department of Health. I would do it to the state, not the Health and Human Services, not the Fed. I would use the state. And it's a PDF file. Lots of times they want you to do it over the internet. Fine, if you want to do that. I like the PDF. I like to mail it. And then it's a very simple, usually 1 page, 2 pages. You identify who you are, who you dealt with. That's when you want to get names at the store, maybe the store manager, and you want to explain when on this date, at this time, I walked into the grocery store and I was told that I had to do this thing, or I was told that I had to allow my vital statistics to be collected. And I asked if there was a physician on site, or if the person talking with me, I asked if he was a licensed physician, and I was informed that he was not. And I advised him of this. And, you know, basically you just give the conversation, make it brief, send that in. They have to investigate it. It does deal with the insurance companies. This is where we have leverage. Okay, these DOH forms deal with government regulations and insurance companies. And I don't care if they believe there's a pandemic or they're acting like there's a pandemic, they have to deal with this stuff. Okay.
From my understanding, Rob Ryder discusses that as well, in reference to Form 95, and he says that, no, not it was another video, but he also spoke about it where it's an exercise, and they did not divulge the fact that this is an exercise.
Yeah, so we're going to get to that. That's on the larger scale. I want to get you through the day. What do you do when you go to take your laundry to get cleaned and you go to the grocery store and Lowe's and all that stuff, right? We're going to get to that because I'm going to show you guys how to do a claim for disaster fraud. Everybody should be doing this. Everybody should be doing the SF-95 form, but we'll get to that. Right. I hope I'm not going too slow. I know I'm missing some things here, so that's why I'm kind of slowing down. I just skipped the OSHA section on my outline. I'm going to go back to that briefly. This is very important. I need to send you guys an updated outline because I have some other detail here, and just let me briefly go over this. There's a regulation that OSHA has. This is established by science. This was done decades ago. It's almost like these guys perpetrating this fraud right now set themselves up to fail. And I think what they do is they have to get you to consent and make it available, make remedies available. And that if you don't take those remedies, that's your problem. And then they're off the hook. I think that's what's going on because it's just right in front of us. So Title 29, Code of Federal Regulations, okay, Section 1910, et sec, the whole section. Let me tell you how this works. OSHA is a government agency. It regulates employment, employers, employees, safety in the workplace. It operates under a body of statutes. There's probably a law statute somewhere that created it. I forget what it's called. But then the director or whomever is running OSHA had to write regulations. That's where these regulations come from. They're administered by the actual agency itself. These regulations are created from scientific research because of the nature of the regulations we're dealing with here, safety equipment and things like that. So what you're going to find is there are specific regulations where measurements have already been done decades ago about oxygen and the human body, okay? And if you look at, when I send you, there's a couple of links here, but you guys can see this. I'm just going to read this because I think it's so important. This is how OSHA regs start out. It says, human beings must breathe oxygen to survive and begin to suffer. They will begin to suffer adverse health effects when the oxygen level of their breathing air drops below 19.5% oxygen. Now, if you've seen some of these videos, like what Peggy Hall did, and she had that guy that was, I guess, in a truck, and he had the mask on. He did the test. Remember, as soon as he put the mask on, it went below 19.5, started alarming. Now, this regulation goes on, this commentary goes on to talk about you could actually damage individual organs by doing this. The longer you wear that mask, you can cause brain damage, you can cause liver failure, lung failure. The most common one I think we're going to see, unfortunately, is we're going to see bacterial infections. Yeah. And sure enough, they're going to go to the hospital, they're going to get misdiagnosed with COVID-19. But pleurisy is a bacterial infection that's already been caused by the mask wearing, and doctors have already diagnosed that. The ones that are not on the take. I've already read these articles. I should say
I think there's a lot of doctors that are not on the take.
Yeah, I think it's not enough, but yeah, I think there are enough. So we need to work with them. So the regs are very clear on this. Man, I've seen women who are pregnant wear these masks. I've seen children. It's so bad.
Yep.
But this is going to, I mean, let me do a flashback real quick. When I talk with my chiropractor over this, he's a smart guy. He's afraid. He doesn't want to know more. He doesn't want to know more. So I can't really talk to him. But his thinking is, and we've had this conversation through the last several weeks, his thinking is, but what about the Spanish flu? Let me tell you something. You can do some research on this, but there was no such thing as the Spanish flu. Just quickly, just so you guys know, Spanish flu was not a flu. It was another epidemiological experiment. It was done on U.S. soldiers, and it began in Fort Riley, Kansas in 1918. Those were the first cases. They called it Spanish flu so they could continue the epidemiological study, and I'll tell you who they are in a second. They could continue it so that during World War I, the soldiers would not be spooked and would still follow orders and not be scared of getting a bacterial infection or a virus or whatever they want to call it. So they called it the Spanish flu because Spain was neutral at the time. All right, so here I'm going to give you the phrase for what the Spanish flu really was. It had nothing to do with Spain. I call it the Fort Riley, Kansas Epidemiological Study on Military Personnel, U.S. military personnel. All right, that's what it was. And it was, here's what killed 50 million to 100 million people. We still don't know how many people it killed. It was the treatment that killed them. There was no contagious virus. There was bacteria, and bacteria, yes, can be transmitted between people. That's an environmental issue, okay, which takes us back to Béchamp's terrain theory. You guys can look that up. So I just want to do a quick flashback on that, because for anyone out there who's thinking, but what about the Spanish flu? No such thing. Just like now, there's no such thing. All right, so what I've said so far, does that help you guys with the initial things on the mask, the temperature,
yes,
DOH,
it does.
language? Okay, and privacy is another one. Privacy is a property right. We're going to get into this because we want to cover the social distancing. That's nothing to do with health. There's no science on that as to what it's purported to be, but there is science, And there is information. You can get it from many sources. You can get it from official NASA sources, from Lockheed Martin. There's too many to list, okay? It'll tell you that the 6 feet apart is how the GPS system works to identify individual people.
Ah.
So the social distancing it's only to do with contact tracing, which is another word for nothing but electronic surveillance. And it's
Tracking.
illegal electronic surveillance. Yeah. Contact tracing
Mm-hmm.
is social distancing, which is electronic surveillance. Eavesdropping. Okay? That's all it is. Now, here's the scary part. Let's say I'm giving a hypothetical. You're at the store somewhere and you're walking next to somebody, or maybe you're within proximity of somebody, and you have your phone and he has his phone. You guys are healthy. You're like me. I don't take my phone to the store, by the way. I leave it, it's on my desk. But so you're connected to someone in that proximity, and then your phone is tagged to that phone because that phone is on the network. Your phone's on the network. Now his phone and your phone are connected as being at that place and time, okay? A GPS coordinate. It's pegged forever in a database somewhere. 3 weeks later, he gets tested for COVID-19, which is a really stupid thing to do, by the way. Of course you don't want to do that. But somehow he gets tested. He gets tested for COVID-19. I shouldn't have said that. I don't have that edited out. So he gets tested, and it's positive, right? Well, that testing facility grabs all his phone data, and they see that you were there with him for 7 minutes at this location. And because they got your phone data now, chances are your phone data has your home address. And guess what happens to your family? Quarantine. It gets ugly. They could take your kids away and everything like that just because of that phone. I'm even thinking of ditching my phone altogether and just getting a whole new setup and get a month-to-month plan and, something like that. You can go into your Android phone and you can go into Google, go into settings, Google, and on the top right, there's a 3-dot menu option. Tap that, and it says usage and data or something like that. Click that item, touch that item, and it'll show you that your contact tracing program, they don't call it that though. Whatever surveillance is on, so just turn it off and then back out of that menu structure, and that'll disconnect your Android phone from the network. You'll still be having your phone and everything, but it won't be under the contact tracing, okay? You'll want to check your phone once in a while to see if it's been changed. So, but yeah, make sure your personal data is not on your phone. I mean, I know it's a pain in the butt, but it's probably worth it. Just think that through.
Mm-hmm.
We did cover the patient's bill of rights. I'm not saying that's where you get your rights from. I'm just saying that everyone understands what that means. And it's very easy to win that argument with anybody. Do I have the right to informed consent? What kind of right is that? Well, it's not from written words written by your state legislature, okay? It's because you had that property right when you were born, okay? Just understand that. It's just that their language they understand, okay, is the patient's bill of rights. Property rights. Private property rights. These are intangible private property rights. Okay, so you can never have informed consent unless someone is able to, who's competent medical professional, can inform you as to how a particular medical procedure or advice being given to you is going to affect you, showing you the clinical studies, and also giving you the risk and reward analysis, allowing you the risk benefit analysis, allowing you to consider and make your own decision. Okay, just that the fact that you consented is not informed consent. If I bought, like I was telling Joseph yesterday, if I bought a bicycle from a 12-year-old and his parents weren't there and I gave him fair price for it, or even if I overpaid, it's not a binding contract, right? Because he's not competent. He's 12 years old. He has to be 18. Yeah, so same thing.
Exactly.
If you do not have informed consent, you were not able to consent. Here's another example. I pay my doctor that I've been had my doctor for, let's say, 10 years, and I have to do a procedure for some reason. And he's a very diligent person. Let's say he's always done a great job for me, and he gives me all the medical advice and all the information that I need to make my decision. And I even go get a second opinion, and I come back to him and I do the medical procedure. And then later on, a year later, I discovered that there was additional information that he should have given me. He just forgot. That's not informed consent. That's how important this is. You were denied informed consent because that information may have allowed you to change your decision to have that surgery or procedure or whatever, okay? So if some clerk at a grocery store says, you have to wear this mask, what are we talking about here, right? Just an assault. This is an assault. Someone from, is just on the street, just assaulting you. You cannot impose an illegal condition as a matter of contract. This goes for employment also. This goes for a facility you may be living. Let's say it's an apartment complex where there's lots of units and there's an apartment manager that's obsessed, right? The guy that drives the golf cart all day, right? And he's watching everybody, and you come in and he's saying to you, now you come in after work and you come into your apartment complex, you're coming home, and he's saying, you can't come into your apartment until you put on this mask. Well, you got an issue of false imprisonment among all these other issues, right? Medical practice, he's not insured for that, no informed consent. It's not possible to give informed consent. State's Bill of Rights, all this stuff comes into play, right? You already have a contract with him. You have a lease agreement, or you own the unit, or whatever the deal is, and now he's trying to add to the deal. And that's fine, because sometimes some contracts, if it's an adhesion contract, the contract can change. You've seen this, like your cable bill, okay? They can change the contract within reason, but they cannot change the contract to get involved in something that is illegal. They can't change the contract, like your apartment manager can't block you from your apartment until you do that line of cocaine with him. Obviously.
Yeah.
You cannot be required as a condition of going into your grocery store to take an aspirin, nor can you be required to take a knee and enter some cult, right? Or, obviously you can't be required to eat an apple as a condition, right? So these are all the analogies, and I use that. It's funny, but I want to say those things because you want to think like that, because people think in terms of analogies. We talk like this. Who's going to go and say to somebody, according to 29 CFR section 1910, you're not going to get past that sentence. You want to get them involved. So, like, for example, if someone tells me I have to wear a mask when I walk into a store, maybe I can ask them, what rights do I have? And just stop there. And I asked him a question, and it's human nature to want to answer the question. And he'll say, what do you mean? What rights do you have? And you say, well, you just told me I have to accept your medical advice. And he'll say, well, I wasn't giving you medical advice. And you say, thank you very much. Have a nice day. Right? So you could just slam them. I mean, they don't understand what they're doing.
Right.
No, they just follow the rest of them.
They say, I'm just doing my job. And, I mean, it's up to you on how you want to deal with that. Are you willing, if I wear a mask, are you willing to accept responsibility and liability for me wearing the mask that you're telling me that I have to wear? If I walk in your store and shop and I collapse in a state of unconsciousness, are you covered? You can ask them that. Ask the manager that. That'll make him get scared. That'll scare him. That'll scare him more than the news, because his job's on the line then. Are you willing to accept responsibility and liability? There was a case the other day. It was a gentleman who was in court, but he wouldn't wear a mask, and he made it to the court in the court session, but he was arrested because he made the mistake of leaving, and then because he didn't appear for his actual court date, the judge issued a bench warrant for his arrest. So he didn't handle that properly. But it wasn't about the mask wearing. But I'll just tell you, imagine a situation where you go to court and you're not wearing a mask. You got a traffic ticket you got to deal with, and you're not going to wear a mask. And you get in the building, and that judge is going to act like he's King George III. And so he's going to have his mask on and tell you, you're going to have to wear a mask or I'm going to hold you in contempt. That's kind of a worst case scenario right now. What would you do? My response to that would be, Judge, are you willing to accept responsibility and liability if I put a mask on now based on what you're ordering me to do? You not knowing my medical condition, you not knowing or being aware of my disability, whether or not I have one is irrelevant. If I put a mask on, are you willing to accept responsibility and liability for me wearing this mask? Are you going to protect my health? And are you insured for that? That's not going to happen.
And are you giving medical advice?
That he knows all that, and that's the nice thing about it. But if you know how to say it, here's what he'll do. I guarantee what he'll do. I've seen this before. In the 90s, we used to do this. not exactly, but we would do other issues, and then the judges would do this. They would separate us into another courtroom by ourselves alone, and then they would conduct a hearing alone and have the other 200 people in that courtroom. So that's probably what would happen. They don't want to talk about this. So that, again, that's another way. That's probably your worst case scenario right now. Okay. Are you willing to accept responsibility? Are you going to protect my health? What will you do if I collapse in an unconscious state? And are you insured for that?
Right.
And you got to get the store manager involved. You got to get the property, like whoever's responsible for the property. You ask them, are you responsible for these premises? It's the chief judge. It's the store manager. It's the strip mall manager. It's the manager, owner of the business that you're in, right?
Mm-hmm.
You ask them, are you willing to accept?
Yep. And so those claims that we will file those claims and you can use them in court as well, right?
You can, absolutely. And like we were talking about before, you do the DOH complaint. Now that's not, you don't stop there. You do the DOH complaint, give them as many facts as possible. You articulate these violations: not informed consent, not licensed, not insured, coerced, against my will, etc., false imprisonment, unlawful restraint, social distancing is unlawful restraint. Okay, you write all this up. You send it to the agency. Now, like I was explaining yesterday, you can start a case in court. There are causes of action. I can tell you, like, here's a simple one. I'm not saying you should do this, but I'm just going to give you an example. You can get a declaration of a judgment, declaratory judgment. Let me just look real quick on the internet here. I'm just going to, and I really appreciate what Peggy Hall has done. And there is a code, a statute in the state of California. It's in section 51, California Code, California Civil Code, section 51. Now, I'm not telling you again that just because there's a statute, you all of a sudden have some rights. I'm just telling you that it was nice enough for the California legislature to write this up so that we can all learn from it. And I'm searching right now, California Code 51, and I'm going to read this for you, and you will see that you already have these rights. It just so happens that California put it into an active legislation, and now that gives you a cause of action. That means you can sue under that statute. You can also sue under declaratory judgment for this issue. Now, I'm not saying do this. I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to explain this in just a second. But here's how the statute begins. It says this section shall be known as the UNRUH Civil Rights Act. UNRUH. I don't know what that means. Who cares? It says all persons within the jurisdiction of this state are free and equal, no matter what their gender, race, color, religion, ancestry, national origin, disability, medical condition, genetic information, marital status, etc., and are entitled to the full and equal accommodations, advantages, facilities, privileges, or services in all businesses, establishments of every kind whatsoever. That includes your courthouse. Everywhere that's open to the public, you have the right, free and equal access everywhere. Okay? Now, if you wanted to file a claim for declaratory judgment and declare that you have those rights, you can do that, and you can get a judge to agree because it's going to be unopposed. Who's going to oppose that? How can you possibly oppose that? Right? That's like when I file a motion for a fair hearing somewhere. How's the judge going to deny that? You know, so it's very easy to come in for declaratory judgment and say that I have free and equal access, regardless of my gender and all this other stuff, okay? Medical condition, etc. Now, the reason why you file a case, you go into small claims court, you file a case, you get a case number, now you've got a pending case going. Whatever you do at that point, I'm not going to tell you, I'm just saying, you got a pending case going. Now, you then take the caption, like a normal caption document you guys have seen in lawsuits, and you simply below the caption, the court title, the case caption, case number, it might say in re and put your name for declaratory judgment, right? And then below that, you would say notice of filing. And then you would put a paragraph that says, please take notice of the filing of the following exhibits, 1, 2, 3, 4, or A, B, C. And then after that page, you might sign that page at the bottom, okay? And then after that page, you put exhibit 1, exhibit 2, exhibit 3, and you slide in these documents. Here's one of them, your Department of Health complaint against whomever. because it doesn't really mean much until you make it a matter of public record. And I'm showing you how to easily put it on the public records. We want to use the court system to put these documents on public record, because someone is going to see these, like me or that guy or some other guy who's desperate to try to get some help. And he's going to see, oh my gosh, this is a treasure trove of claims. I didn't know we can make all these claims. And it's going to be on public record. Not only that, when it's on public record, it gets factored into the money of the organization that you're making a claim against. Now, declaratory judgment is not making a claim against somebody. It's just making a declaration of some kind. So I take my Department of Health complaint. I take the letter I sent them. I take the notice of liability I sent them. Okay, whatever it is. I'm going to show you guys some more things. I take my OSHA complaint. I take my complaint for disaster fraud. I'm going to take all that. When the county here issued this order, I sent a letter to him and I said, I'm making a claim against you for inciting a riot, for risking the health and well-being of my family when we go out in public to try to get food, and you're creating a situation where other people will want to attack us or restrain us from getting food, because your order has no legal merit whatsoever, but people don't know that. I told him in the letter. You're knowingly creating the situation. So I put a dollar amount on it. I said, I'm accusing you of costing me $1 million a day for each family member that has to deal with this.
John, where you said you recorded that at?
I didn't record it yet. I just sent him a letter. But what I'm saying is, when you do letters like that, and that's not the way to make a claim. I'm just saying, you send a letter, you fill out a form for an agency, DOH, OSHA, your county, okay? And we'll get into this. You take all these claim forms and you file it in a notice of filing in the case you just filed in the county court, small claims court. You file them. And you, at the very back of that, you put a certificate of service. And you can see how to do that. I'm not going to go through that right now. So you file these, and then the clerk's going to accept it, because the clerk is not going to reject exhibits. The clerk will reject something else, because that's what they do now. But this is how you get the stuff in the court.
Get a number any way you can, civil, suit, whatever you want.
Yes.
That'll open up that file where you can make public
You
filing.
could sue your friend. You could sue each other and just keep doing it. And then when you're done, dismiss the case. And the case is still public record, right?
Because it stays in their system.
That's right, public records. But here's what you want to do. So like, you get these all filed, and then you go to the clerk and you purchase a certified copy of each page that you want.
Okay.
And you're going to get a stamp on there, a label or whatever. It's going to have a clerk seal, pay $1 a page or whatever. Now you've got a certified record. What can you do with that? You can publish it in the newspaper.
Right.
Now you can file it back in the case. Right. So now your exhibits become certified records, and you put them back in the case.
Right.
Yeah. Now I do a legal notice where you see these legal notice journals. You do that in the newspaper or on the internet. You pay for that, and you notice the lien or the claim or whatever you want to call it in case number, and use the universal case identifier. They don't always put that on the caption. So, and by the date it was filed and all that. That way, you don't have to put the whole page. Or the 50 pages. You just have to refer to it as this case file.
As a caption, right.
That's right. And then you then send them another letter and say, I told you guys, if you don't stop this nonsense, it's too late. and you want to always copy the county attorney and the state attorney.
Hey, John, Tom told me also that just the intent of putting in a lien, meaning the intention of it on a public notice of it, is an official lien, because that goes into an archive where you don't need to do an actual UCC statement.
That is correct. Yes. I don't know how to do those. I did them once, but I don't want to show y'all how to do that. I don't care. But you're right. You would just indicate that you're going to put a lien, and that would be enough.
And that's the same shit as doing a straight up lien on them.
That's right. Nothing special there. Yeah. So you don't need a security agreement and all that stuff. So we've covered quite a bit of things here, and I'm happy to continue. I mean, you guys want to direct me some way, because we got a lot of stuff to cover. I mean,
we can always set it up for more than one call, like a part 2.
Yep. We can do part 2.
Yes, and I'll be able to get more people on the line that say they didn't get the link right away, or they can plan.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, that's good. And please send me some comments or whatever, or email. If you want to end this now, that's great. We can do that. If not, well, I'll continue. I mean,
What about you guys?
I could go for like another 20 minutes.
all right.
That's cool.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, so then we get into this the temperature taking, collecting data, medical examinations. There's no informed consent, et cetera, no licensing. Where are we having those problems? Oh, okay. You can talk to people in person, face to face. Be polite. I'm very guilty of not always being polite because sometimes I just feel so righteous, or I just want to tell them like, wake up, will you? But you just kind of have to be patient. Um, to avoid that situation, it's better to send a letter, a polite letter, not a threatening letter, maybe a one-page letter, and just explain and say you might want to check some things out. Um, if you'll see in the letters I've got here, I explain, if you search on a phrase, which is the name of the pandemic, they call it now, and then you search on the phrase tabletop exercise simulation, it'll take you right to the World Health Organization's website where there's a slideshow that tells you about the simulation.
About the what? I'm sorry.
The simulation.
Oh, what they're doing.
It
The
is a
BS.
simulation. Yeah, they're telling you how the simulation operates. It's a play. It's a live action role-playing event. The whole thing. Yeah, and it says so right on the WHO's website. Now there was one that preceded it. It was the last rehearsal they did before going live. When I say going live, I mean
Making it worldwide.
Yeah, taking it worldwide and taking the money and commandeering public resources. That's when it went live. They finally commandeered police resources. They're trying to operate under the public safety doctrine. It's not working out too well.
They actually tore up parks. Like you can't go.
Yes.
We have parks here where you work out at. They literally took out the bars. They unsoldered them and took them apart. Like, if no, you can't use this. You're not gonna use this. This is ours, not yours.
They've destroyed county property. And even though county employees do that, it's outside of they don't have permission. So what you want to do is make a complaint to the county, maybe make an insurance claim, report vandalism. You see? Report vandalism. I should have done that in mine. There's so many things I can do.
So John, what do you do when these creeps, meaning the attorneys for these municipalities, act like creeps and they disregard like what they did with my claim? What's my next thing? Hit them like a public notice?
Yeah, public notice. Make sure you notify the county attorney, the state attorney, the city attorney. You can sue them, but I wouldn't do that. I would file an insurance claim with their own form in the same way I would file a claim as if I had a broken tire because they didn't fix the curbing.
But John, they make it so hard. They fight you tooth and nail to get their insurance information. I tried out my ass.
Don't try to get it. Just file the claim with the attorney. They have to deal with it. They have to go get the insurance agent, not you.
So you're saying just send the claim straight to whatever attorney runs that municipality or whatever state?
That's where you're missing it. You got to notice that attorney. You got to have a bona fide claim. Then that attorney will definitely bring in the insurance company. He has no choice.
And I guess make sure that all your mail has been certified, tracked, and so like that.
You could do that. First class is proper, but you can use certified mail. I mean, the best way to do it is to send the item you're sending by certified mail and first class mail, 2 different envelopes.
Oh, okay. Oh, send them
process server if you can afford it.
Oh yeah, I mean, I wouldn't. Gosh, you're going to get into very expensive.
Right.
You don't need a process server for that. You can just use certified mail and first class mail. I mean, that's why it was set up first class mail.
But John.
Yeah.
We got creeps, super creeps over here in Jersey and New York City. So I get what you're saying, but we don't have the Orange County people who think a little more differently. We got straight up creeps over here.
Okay, go up the chain, and you've got counties. Okay, find who above in that chain. Find who declared the state of emergency. Was it your county? Was it your mayor?
Oh, I see.
Was it? Okay, now here's why I say this. If you got a situation with the county attorney, maybe that's, bring in the top level of the chain of command under a complaint for disaster fraud and then you name that office, the county attorney's name, you name him as a tacit participant
I
in the
get it.
disaster fraud.
You're bringing them in. So now
Yeah.
they're
Make
becoming
them all fight each other now.
right.
Yeah.
What's that called? They're in collusion now.
That's right. Use the
Hey, I
word
always
tacit
thought to
participation.
bring a bill in as well.
You could do that. Yeah, you could send
Fee
him a bill.
schedule?
You could literally send him a bill. Yes. That's what you're doing, okay, with your claim form for the county. Use the
Mhm.
county's claim form and send him a bill with the claim form.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's
Exactly.
binding.
That's
And
binding.
if you have to sue him now, I'm not saying that's the solution, but if you have to sue him, here's what you're suing him for. This is good. You're not suing him for civil rights violations. You're not
Exactly.
suing him for a fake pandemic. You're not suing him for disaster fraud. You're suing them for a bill they didn't pay.
Exactly.
And I'm going to tell you what the cause of action is. You'll laugh at this. It's called a stated account.
Yes.
And here's the burden of proof. Here's the burden of proof. Here's what you have to allege in a stated account. I sent him a bill and he didn't pay. It has nothing to do about anything else.
Exactly.
Okay, now when you got a case in court, now I don't know when you want to do this, but
Mhm.
when you got a case in court, let's say it's a traffic citation, or maybe you got cited for not wearing a mask. Please write me a citation for that, somebody. I will take the citation because there's a case number, and the first day I will issue a subpoena to the governor, and I'll make him prove the pandemic because that's
Right.
the basis of the citation.
Right.
Mhm.
And I'll set it for trial right then. I will set it for trial, and I will set pretrial discovery, time schedules, and I'll send it into the judge to have him sign off. Watch how fast they dismiss that case. I've had cases before in other issues where we did that, where there literally was no case after a month. It literally, they couldn't find it. It was like it was never issued. They
I
deleted
had that before.
You have. Okay, so
I
you know
hate
what I'm
when
talking
they
about.
tell you, "Oh no, we keep records of everything." I had it in a small county in Jersey where I went there. I called the clerk. I went to the clerk of the county, and my case was nowhere to be found
Well, New
because
Jersey is special. I'm gonna tell you about New Jersey. They do not have accountability anywhere. You can't even find who the chief judge is. So it is the mafia running that over there.
No, but
I
look
know.
what happened when I sued their so-called district attorney, which is the town is less than 2 miles. All of a sudden, my case it don't exist no more.
That's right.
I said, wait a minute. So that means someone deleted my case.
Deleted it.
But we know it's fraud always.
No, but they always
Okay.
tell you we can't. Nothing gets
All right.
deleted.
Listen,
everything.
here's when this happens. Depending on when you want, depending on how far you want to go here, what you have is a. All right, let me mute
Hey,
you guys.
can somebody mute out?
Yeah. We gotta. It takes me a second to find out how to do this. Sorry.
Yeah.
All right. You need to file a complaint for falsification of public records.
I didn't think of that one.
Yeah, falsification. It's like, don't ever stop, is what I'm telling you.
Right.
Don't stop. There's the next thing to do. Falsification of public records. Now, the responsible party is going to be who is the custodian of those records. If it's the court, it's the clerk of the court and the county recorder's office.
Mhm.
Up the chain from those guys, it's the county attorney.
Because I still got the case itself. I have proof.
That's right. So that's what I'm saying. You open a new case file that, get a certified copy, send them a letter. Now start a new file.
A bill,
Falsification of public records. You see?
Yes.
Right. Because where did my case go?
I got another thing.
Right.
I think about the Thimble insurance where you can make that claim at. When you get the insurance and you can make the claim for the disaster, as you say.
Okay.
You got to check out Thimble Insurance.
Thimble? Okay.
Thimble.
I haven't heard of that one.
Yes. It was Rob Ryder who spoke on something like that.
Yeah, we got to get together because you guys have information I don't have, and I have stuff you guys don't have.
Yeah.
But if you want to look more, I mean, you don't need to do all the legwork. You do not need to find out who the insurance carrier is. But if you want to, what you do is you can do a FOIA request, but you don't even need to do that. Just pull a copy of the budget.
Okay.
And find out what its costs are, and you're going to find the insurance carrier identified in the budget.
So that would be what, the state's or the county's budget?
Whoever's involved.
Okay.
Get them all. Yeah, it's public record. They'll get you the budget. They'll send you the budget, and then go look and see who the carrier is. You can call
Right.
them up. Yeah.
That's beautiful. Yeah.
But
It's
doesn't
beautiful.
it, John? Doesn't it go up what's that called? Up the tree? What do they call that? Up the ladder, meaning that it always starts at the county level and then it creeps up to the state level and
Whoever
so
picks
on
the
and so
fight
on.
is who you start with.
Okay.
Whoever's going to pick the fight. If it's your county, city mayor, county board of supervisors, pick the fight there. Start there. If it's your, if somebody declares a state of emergency or the emergency situation in the county, it's that idiot. Now, there's an inspector general for every function of government. There's one
Hmm.
for the whole country, and he only deals with a limited number of situations. But the inspector general that deals with public funds regarding disasters is the one for FEMA that works out of the DOJ's office. This is where you want to file your disaster fraud claim. And I have an example one I just filed the other day. I just sent one, and I'll probably send one periodically.
Can you send us a
Hmm.
copy of that example?
Yeah, I'll give
All
you all
right.
that. I'll email it to. Can I send it to you, Joseph, or I mean, where
Yes,
do you guys want me to?
you
Okay.
can send it to me and I'll
So,
send it
so,
out.
so John, this is a little of overstanding that I don't have. So basically, you're saying that they're trying to get their hands, these mayors, these governors, whatever, on more money, um, on their own,
Yeah,
meaning. So, but
the,
what
the
happened?
money's already there.
The money's already. Oh, so this is their way of reaching out and going into
This is a
that.
bribe. This is how you get a bribe today. Just like, the FTC gets a bribe when it sues a company and then the company pays it millions of dollars and then they settle the case.
Mm.
That's how you pass a bribe in front of everybody.
Yeah, yeah,
All
yeah.
right. So
I get that.
here's how you bribe your county officials to do your evil bidding. You overfund FEMA.
Yeah,
And what are
yeah.
they going to do? They're bankrupt. Of course they're going to file a state of emergency.
Brilliant. That's brilliant. Yeah.
Yeah. They
Hmm.
almost have no choice. So
So those are so when they reach it into those accounts, those are the accounts that they set up as block grants, right?
yeah. Yeah, whatever they want to call it. It's FEMA. I got a list of the agencies here somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you can send that out, that'll be fine.
Mhm.
I'll get it to
So
John,
everybody
can,
else.
so to
John,
ask,
Yes. Phone.
can you go into a little more detail of the stated accounts? Because that's my first time hearing that
Okay, a
terminology
stated
before.
account is a type of lawsuit. It's called a pleading. Just like
Okay,
if you sued someone for breach of contract, that's a pleading. And
okay,
in breach of contract, for example, if I sued someone for breach of contract, well, I have to first allege that there was a contract. I have to say in the pleading, there was a contract between this guy and that guy, right? Then I have to say the date of the contract commenced on the such and such, right? And here's a copy of the contract. I have to say all that stuff, right? But let's say I don't have the contract anymore, which is true for the banks. This is how I figured this out. The banks don't keep contracts. Credit cards don't keep contracts. All they do is send you bills, and then if you don't pay, they don't sue you for breach of contract. They don't sue you for money lent all the time. Sometimes they do. It just depends on the style of the attorney. What they sue you for is a stated account. And
Yes.
the
Mhm.
allegations in the state account are this: we sent him a bill and he didn't pay and he didn't object. Or even if you do
Exactly.
object, they still say that, right?
Right.
That's it. They don't
That's
have to
it.
got it,
say, that's all they have to prove. And then they
got it.
say, here, judge, here's the bill. And nope,
That's
there's
it.
no objection. No matter what you say after that, you lose.
That's what
Got it.
simplifies everything.
Yep. So you
Yeah.
can do that to them too.
Yes.
Dated
I
account.
got it.
Yep.
but doesn't the other party have to prove that you owe them something? That's in the
That's the beauty of this. Here's the burden
Yeah.
of proof. Here's the burden of proof. I alleged that I sent them a bill. Then I alleged it wasn't paid. So then my burden of proof is, here's the bill, judge. It's a piece of paper with a bill on it.
Yes.
That's it.
That's it.
it never says bill. It says it's a statement. That's what
That's right.
Whatever
I
it
could,
is.
yeah, all it is a demand for payment. It could be a letter saying, you must pay me $10,000 by the phone
Right.
so and so date. Signed. You don't have to sign it either.
But under the
Yeah.
Fair Debt Credit Act, you're supposed to prove how they owe you this bill.
Nope. That doesn't
Nope.
require, the FDCPA does not require that of anybody, by the way, but it does not apply to government agencies and people.
Right.
It only
Exactly.
applies to third-party corporate private debt collectors.
Oh, so you're
Exactly.
saying if it's a government agency, then they have the burden of proof?
No,
You have the
you have the
burden.
burden of proof, but the burden of proof is so low, it doesn't matter.
Right.
Yeah, you always have the burden of proof as a plaintiff, and a law can't create a burden of proof, by the way. The pleading creates a burden of proof. So
Yeah,
And
once
if I'm going to plead like wrongful death for civil damages, boy, that burden of proof is immense, right?
mhm,
But a stated account, that's nothing. That's easier than a traffic ticket.
yes.
so once it becomes account receivable, you could just collect.
That's right. You can just be just like them. You can just collect on them. Yes. It's an
All right.
unpaid bill. It's receivable. You send them a notice. You can go into court, small claims, get a case. You pretty much easily win. I mean, I don't normally do it that way. I use that for other things, but I use it. I defend against it mostly. So I see how they do it. I don't, but I have used it to get a quick solution to things. It works really well.
Mm-hmm.
There
Mhm,
are some legal criteria, so they could get you into a bit of a battle. They could protract it a little bit, but that is the quickest remedy if you have to sue them. But keep in mind, like I always tell people, I don't believe the court is our solution, it's our remedy. I think we can use the court for a forum and public records.
Right,
mhm,
right.
That will impact their insurance. Just like that county in California, people kept suing the county for the sheriffs. They were abusing people. I forget when this was, maybe 10 years ago. And they didn't know anything about this stuff. They were just suing the county because that's what they do. And attorneys were probably taking their money knowing that they weren't going to win. But so many lawsuits were filed that the insurance carrier actually told the county, I'm sorry, we can't ever carry your insurance anymore. And when the other insurance carrier saw that, they said the same thing. So they could not literally become insured anymore. So that literally the cops could not drive in cars and carry
It's
guns in work.
5:21. We met Miss Child.
That it stopped everything. So they, can you guys hear me okay?
I
Yeah.
hear you.
They literally
So what
had
happened to the
to
county? Did it
uh,
shut down all its municipal offices?
fire them and hire new ones. It didn't dissolve the county, but they had to fire them and hire new ones before they could get new insurance.
So
So that,
basically, the liability was the people and not the corporation itself.
yeah, the fact that they were sued exceeded their actuarial risk assessment criteria. So the fact that they were sued 4 times in a month said to the insurance company, "Hey, you're uninsurable now,"
So,
just based on our data. It's a
so,
business decision, right? We
so,
didn't have to sue them and win a case.
so how did the, you see, this is what I'm not getting. How did the county stay alive if the county is the corporation that they're suing?
Well, they just couldn't get insurance for their personnel. They didn't dissolve. That they still had insurance. They just couldn't get insured now for their cops. So they just had to fire the cops
Uh,
and get new cops.
so it wasn't the county itself; it was the
No.
police they were going after.
Right. It was the
The other
policy that covered the police because that's a special policy. And,
Okay, so it was the subsidiary, which was the police
yeah,
department under them.
you can look at it that way, right? Yeah.
But wouldn't it have been better to shut them all down if you sue the head Satan, which would be the county itself?
You want blood, huh? You want to go for
Hell yeah.
blood.
These people, come on.
No, I'm with you, but let's do one thing at a time. Let's focus on the immediate thing. You want to get your needs met. I mean, for me, I've looked for alternative ways to buy food in case I have to. I'm not
Right.
thinking, I'm no friend of the court. I do not believe the court is my friend. Paperwork is a joke.
Mhm.
Words on paper. You got to take action. You need to look at alternatives like how the heck do you get out of Dodge if you have to? Have a year's worth of food. If you need weapons, if you think you need weapons, or you want to, whatever. Get with friends, get with your neighbors. There's a couple of channels talking about these neighborhoods being taken over, right, in the rural areas. I don't want to get too far off topic, but you know, be proactive. Okay, I want to have these conversations because I want to help everyone get through what they need to get through right now. I'm not showing you how to take the house down. Maybe
Right.
that day will come. I hope not.
So why is
Right.
it the feds is not pushing all this garbage on us, but our local counties and our states are pushing this garbage?
I think you just answered your own question.
Because they're de facto. They're
Isn't
on
it
their own.
easier? Isn't it easier? If you can get people to do it to themselves, why would you have to bring in tanks and military when you already got everything in place?
Yeah.
I mean, you tell me, in March, who was rationing food?
Everybody.
Costco. Yeah.
Everybody
With it.
thought the food was going out of
That's
style.
right. That's right. It was your store managers. It wasn't the police. It wasn't the military. So they got a slick system. They got
Very
the,
slick.
they
In
got
this
the,
area
yeah,
where I'm at, they were happy to, because I asked the supermarket manager. I was like, man, everybody's buying food. Like, there's no food gonna be here
yeah,
tomorrow. He said,
right,
we got a truck, a delivery coming tomorrow, and we both started laughing. And I was like, we were on point. We was like, everybody's buying like there was not gonna be enough food for
right,
tomorrow. But
right.
he said there's another truck coming tomorrow. So it's just people and their own mind fuck 2020.
That's right. Yep, that's
So
exactly right.
so I guess we can continue another time or part two to this, or
Yeah,
anybody have
part two. I mean, we can review already because you may have some more questions. There's some
Mhm.
technical things on the false imprisonment and unlawful restraint items that I can talk about, and also on data privacy, which is a focus in my core business, which I deal with, money and planning and investing. But
Mhm.
data privacy is really important when it comes to medical data.
Mhm.
So yeah, we can get into that next time. And also, I did want to talk more about the SF95. I'm not an expert on that, but I understand it. We could talk about that too.
From my understanding, you can use the SF95 for anything, including false imprisonment, because
Yeah,
they're,
you could. Right.
yeah.
That is your claim form for injury and damages, just like the one you can have one for your county and your city. Everyone has one. That's just the standard form 95. That's published by your government accounting office, I believe.
Right.
Right.
None
Right.
of them hold official how you say that, standing in reference to being their oath of office for the United States of America. It's all it's done in their own manner and not properly. The oath was never taken properly. And this I got also, you already know, Joseph, from Rob Ryder, that they never take the proper oath. Therefore, they just become domestic terrorists.
Well, I think if you stay focused on the issues, you'll have better ground. I think you
Right.
really push it through because we have really solid ground here. I mean, come on, the informed consent, that is so easy.
Yes.
Medical advice, no licensing, no insurance.
The
Why
least
get
resistance is the best way.
Yeah, why
It
get off
is.
into these other issues with bonds and oath of office?
It's
Yeah.
just,
Yeah.
you know what it is? When you've been detained so many times for bullshit, it gets to be tedious and you're like out for revenge. I've been detained. I've been in, I mean, I've never done serious time, but I've done
Well,
days.
I'll share this with you. When I started doing this work in the 90s and I saw that people were being exploited and I was angry and I wanted to tell everybody, and I decided to do this as a profession full time after a few years of research. And I made certain rules for myself. And one of them is that I would never use a client's case for my own vengeance. And I think
Hmm.
that's been the best use of my time and resources because I can certainly do that. And it's not fair to the client. Maybe it helps them, maybe it doesn't, but it doesn't really solve anything. But I think if we just solve the problem, a lot of the stuff starts getting dealt with. I just really
Right.
think that way.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, if you're saying we can use 95, SF95 for everything, then once you start putting these people on notice and you start coming at them with these claims, they're gonna back down. They'll put you on a list. Do not mess
Okay.
with this
Well,
guy.
let's deal with that. If that happens, let's do, and
Yeah.
I've thought about that. So,
I mean, Joseph's situation right now, he's going through it, and
okay,
that
well,
sucks.
we could talk about that, but however you
Yeah.
want, privately or publicly, however you want,
Privately.
yeah, and
All
there's
right.
there's ways of handling it. So,
Yes.
you go to the responsible parties and you lay it down for them and see what kind of liabilities they're willing to accept.
Right.
General idea.
And that had gave me a great idea of working with this situation.
Yeah.
And anything else, like far as Juan is talking about, we can always speak privately,
Hmm.
which is better
Yeah.
because we know how the public forum is.
Yeah, and so this is going to be helpful, I hope. I mean, I hope we covered it adequately. Again, the last thing we can cover more, which is such a huge subject, which is the privacy and data security, data breach issues.
Hmm.
Who has what liability? We can get into that.
Yeah, the
Um,
informal consent form,
yep.
finding
And
out who the chief counsel is.
there's ways to find that
Huge
out. I
company.
mean, a lot of times I can get on the internet with that. When I deal with a company, a private company, like a grocery store, when I
Mhm.
put them on notice for something, I also find who the chief counsel is or general counsel for the entire organization. So like Walmart, for example, they're in, I think, what was it?
Arkansas.
Arkansas, you're right. Arkansas is the chief counsel. That's their home office. And I believe it's a woman. I forget her name. I just sent a notice out to Walmart and I sent one to the local Walmart, which doesn't really matter. But if I go in there and that manager read it and he saw what was sent to the risk manager for the entire company, maybe that would be enough to influence him. So when I go in there, maybe my time will be a little bit easier, right? So that's why I did. But I'm going to share that with you all. Joseph, I'll send it over to you, okay?
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. I mean, we can go another time.
Well, I appreciate everyone participating.
All right,
look forward to the next one.
All
You
right, it's
guys
nice
enjoy your
meeting you,
report.
John. Nice meeting you.
Likewise.
Thank you.
All right, guys.
All right.
Have a good one, John. Pleasure.